Hi, this is Alexandra Hudson, founder and curator of Civic Renaissance, an intellectual community dedicated to beauty, goodness, and truth, and reviving the wisdom of the past to help us think more clearly about our current moment. And we are here in Cambrai. This is the final resting place. This is where François Fénelon spent the last few decades of his life. He was born in 1651, August 6th, and he died here in Cambrai in 1715. François Fénelon was an incredible lesser-known theologian and a public intellectual in France. Cambrai is in northern France, very close to Belgium, in the 1600s, 1700s. And his story teaches us how, and sheds insight into how we can cope with great successes and great failures in life. Fénelon had a string of early successes in his life. He was born to privilege. He had an incredible classical humanistic education, studied the classical Greco-Roman texts, and was really passionate about classical learning. And he decided he wanted to go into the church, and he quickly rose to a position of influence and power. He even was the personal tutor to Louis XIV, the Sun King's grandson, the future King of France. So he was both the archdiocese here in Cambrai and also an incredibly influential position. He was the tutor of the Dauphin. So he had reached this pinnacle of achievement very early on in his life. And he was beloved by everyone, and then unfortunately he had a bit of a falling out. There was a religious dispute that he kind of stuck to his guns on, and I won't get into the details, but he stuck to his guns and fell out of favor with the king, and was immediately revoked of all his power. He was banned from being tutor of the Dauphin, the future King of France, and was confined basically under house arrest here at the diocese in Cambrai for the rest of his life. And that didn't stop him from being incredibly productive. He wrote an amazingly influential book when he was tutor to the Dauphin, called The Adventures of Telemachus. And his Adventures of Telemachus, it basically fills in the gap of a narrative a gap that Homer left in his Odyssey. So in the Odyssey, Telemachus is Odysseus's son, and Odysseus leaves in charge of his son, both his slave called Eumaeus and his friend called Mentor. And one day, the goddess Athena, the Greek goddess Athena, disguises herself as Mentor and encourages Telemachus to go find out what's happened to his father and help save Ithaca, which Telemachus then does and goes on a series of travels. So Fénelon's Adventures of Telemachus follows the journey of Telemachus, which we don't really learn much about in the Odyssey, which is, we learn a little bit about, but not too much. And so in Adventures of Telemachus, Mentor is the hero of the story, and Mentor is someone that provides a lot of character building and wisdom and virtue and insight to Telemachus. And the whole narrative has a number of anti-monarchical and pro-republican themes, which also didn't do much to please Louis XIV, the Sun King, kind of the first absolutist here in Europe. The Adventures of Telemachus is the first modern usage of our concept of Mentor. Mentor, again, was a character in Homer's Odyssey, but today we know it as someone who, with more wisdom, who imparts their wisdom to someone with less wisdom and knowledge. And we have Fénelon to thank for that modern conception of that concept. And this Adventures of Telemachus was enormously influential on people that came after him. Everyone from Mozart, who it inspired him with both the magic flute and a number of his operas. Rousseau recommends 2 books in his Emile that every student, every young male should enjoy. One is Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe, which he hopes will encourage resilience and resourcefulness in students. And the other one is Fénelon's Adventures in Telemachus, interestingly enough. Montesquieu, even Thomas Jefferson loved and reread Adventures of Telemachus, so incredibly influential. He was incredibly dedicated to the classical and humanistic tradition, Fénelon was, but to him his Christian faith was always central, always the most important thing to him. He has this great line With great curiosity, we search out the thought of mortals, yet we neglect the thoughts of God. One word of the good news of the gospel is more precious than all other books in the world put together. It is the source of all truth. Fénelon was an early defender of universal human rights and declaring the unity of mankind. He wrote, to abandon the sentiment of humanity is not merely to renounce civilization and to relapse into barbarism. It is to share in the blindness of the most brutish brigands and savages. It is to no longer be a man, but a cannibal. He also wrote a treatise on the education of women in an era where women weren't given much thought. So he was a man ahead of his time, a man of great wisdom and empathy and sympathy. And you can read a lot of Fénelon's greatest works in his letters that he wrote in exile while he was here in Cambrai, kind of in political exile here in Cambrai, in a book called The Essential Fénelon, which is absolutely beautiful. He reminds me a lot, he came after Pascal, but he reminds me a lot of Pascal and his just insight into the human psyche and soul. And it's amazing to be here. Across from me, this is not the original church that Fénelon was in. That was unfortunately destroyed, but this is the same vicinity where Fénelon's church was. And just in front of me is the beautiful Parc Fénelon, named after him. This whole city, Cambrai, there are dorms, there are colleges, there are streets, there are parks, things named after him to commemorate him. He's a very important person here. And again, a name that we might not know very well, but enormously influential, and enormously important and elevating part of the great conversation that we care about here at Civic Renaissance. So great to be here, walking in his footsteps today here in beautiful Cambrai.